if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I believe we have a quorum. So we'll just get right into it. Minutes to approve. Move it. A motion and a second. Second. All right. Any discussion on the minutes? None. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. First up, we have the commissioners, our new commissioners, Mr. Camardo and Mr. Batman, both regular faces around. I'm listening. Gentlemen, did you guys want to make the presentation this time, or did you just want to move forward and?
Yeah, I mean, you have our report, and of course, we're still getting used to the job, but fortunately, and we do have two resolutions that it's up to you.
Yeah, I think we can take those right now, for the sake of expedience. Two resolutions. I will, there's the one for the ballots. I've tried to reach out to most of you regarding this. So there's GO1 is the Phoenix contract with Phoenix Graphics for the ballots, and GO2 is for a budgeted salary increase. I think I've talked to most of you. Oh, sorry. So we can take them individually or as a bundle, whatever is the pleasure of the board. So I'll take. Sorry.
Move to bundle.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on bundle of GO1 and 2? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome. We'll be working together, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Next, I believe it is Sheila, but she has to be excused. Amanda, no. So any questions, you can ask Sheila yourself, or you can ask me and I'll relay them to Sheila. So hearing none about that. Mr. Palermo, no updates. Mr. Westfall, anything to add from either of you guys?
I've nothing here.
All right, thanks, guys. Sue, you have no updates, but was there anything to add or just the your resolutions?
I did just send out some year-end reports.
Okay, my apologies.
Report and some January reports. And, there's numbers there. I don't know if anybody wants to ask. I don't know if all of you have heard about the governor's budget, and they're going to give us, it looks like a little bit more money. It's a little tricky the way they put it, but we'll take it. So we expect our revenue to go up. If we use last year's numbers, I can't remember. It's all in the newspaper anyway. They took the numbers from me and we figured it all out. But I think it's a win. I think one of the difficult things about it is that we always say use your local DMVs and the money will stay here. Well, now the money's going to be equal either way. Now I gotta think of a new byline. So I could get people there. We have the best service. I guess that's it. So that's one kind of drawback, and I don't think they did that by mistake. So, but I'll take the more revenue right now. So we got to find the good with that. We were really busy with the Dreams project. We're nearing the end of the pilot. And NICE is getting ready to put their contract forth, and then we'll keep Fred busy with that. And so we're moving forward. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Elaine.
I just for clarification, I thought I heard that percentage for in the DMV is going to be dropped to 10 something, but now you'll get a 10, you'll keep 10% for internet or online stuff. Is that, so that's where you didn't get any before?
So we used to get 12.7% in the office. Now it's going to go down to 10,
7 or
10.75 or whatever. It's going to be the same for online records.
Okay.
So before they had a threshold. So what would happen is if people from Cayuga County went online to do their work, and that amount of money, that's up to $500,000, then we would start getting money, 3-point-something% of that money. So we did get money every year from it, but a low amount. Now they're taking that away, but they're making that in office and online the same. And so we will make some more money, but like I said, everything isn't rosy, but I think it's great that she listened, and I'll give her credit for that.
Any other questions for Sue? We also have you have a resolution, or 2 resolutions, if I'm not mistaken. Sue, would you like to take them now? One at a time?
Absolutely.
All right, so
I don't really, one of those resolutions is not mine, right? There is something that somebody put forth about the salary of the county.
sorry, yeah, either way, I'm abstaining
I didn't.
that one.
To do with that one.
We could do GO3. If
Yeah.
you guys want, do a motion for discussion.
I'll move GO3.
Okay,
Second, GO3.
okay, we have a motion and a second on GO3.
So this is for our records retention, used to be a manager, now it's going to be administrator. In October, the Civil Service Commission voted to change that title and the title of records retention. They were clerks, then they went to specialists. So this was a little bit trickier and it took some, but it's still kind of in process. This part is good. They want to move forward with this. So we had many meetings about it. So in discussions, but as you know, that person has created and put forth a big project, and it's very involved, very complex. He brings people together. We meet. It's moving forward, a very big project. So that's what this is about. And it's going to continue after the project. So every department will have to be trained in Laserfish. Records are going to be kept, some of the records. Some people have another way of keeping records too, but any of the departments, all of those departments that are in the record center, they have records. All of that information is going to be up in Laserfish. Tom Bunn has been a partner in this too. And so that's what we're doing. It's an enormous project and it keeps me up at night sometimes. No, but it's very well run. And we're staying on top of everything. Everything's got to be checked. And Fred knows too, you know, there's vendors and things like that. It's another fun.
Art, did you have a question?
I see that it's a create and fill records retention administrator.
Right, it's the same person. So we're creating that name, records retention administrator. And then we're going to fill it because that person won't be in the other records retention manager anymore. He will be the records retention administrator. Same thing you did, and it was December, was budget time. Remember the 2 records retention specialists? Same exact concept.
So you're going to eliminate
The
a
manager,
position,
yes.
and the same person is going to have a new title and a new position.
That's right.
Not going to change his pay.
Yes.
Oh,
Right?
If you look down at the bottom of the resolution, you'll.
I only have what I have.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the difference is $5,567. That's the difference in the salary.
For this year.
Yes.
So is he going from what grade to what grade? That I guess is.
A 14 to a 22.
So is it, if I remember correctly, this is, so the duties have expanded and a civil service study was done determining that there was a need for a title change.
The Civil Service Commission. So we have to submit a lot of paperwork. We did that and they agreed, yes, it should be changed.
Oh, sorry, Heidi.
So if I understand, the work around Civil Service Commission examining the duties and changing happened around October.
Yes.
So I'm confused or concerned. I'm not sure really what the adjective is.
Yeah.
Why we didn't see this at budget time
Mhm.
and why now, because of the increased salary by just over 5,500 at the starting point, we're going to need to decrease from contingency. And would have been helpful at budget time to have used your budget to put this in there.
Well,
What
the problem was,
interrupted that?
right, so
process.
we had discussions with HR and operations director. So that is why you saw at the last minute, the specialists. This is a little bit more complex. So we had meetings, quite a few meetings. And this is now just being presented. It's not easy, Heidi. It's like, we went through everything that would be now, and then what happens when, at the end, when we empty that record center, what is gonna happen and what are the duties? It's all about that and who did what. So they wanted to do their due diligence and put together a good resolution. I think they did that. Diane was very involved in it, so was Shereen.
Okay, I'm gonna take them in the order of whichever was
Take them
paid where. All right, we'll go with back the other way then. Lydia,
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Did I understand it correctly? This is a performance-based increase?
Yes,
Okay. And then the Dreams Project, you're saying it's related to the Dreams Project, right? So the Dreams Project started when? And really, I need refreshing. I'm not trying to do anything funny here.
well, he started creating it. He started creating it in my direction. And it was right when he came, probably within 6 months of him getting here. Then there was a furlough and then there was COVID.
Okay, so this started before COVID. All right. And then the Dreams Project is supposed to end when? Is supposed to complete?
We are supposed to, it's 4-phase, but it could last 4 to 5 years.
So
And-
through like 2025?
Yes.
So, and that frame up helps me to understand maybe how to phrase this question. There are multiple employees working on this project. So are we to expect multiple requests like this because they're participating in the Dreams Project?
Nope. So we did that, the 2 records retention specialists. And then we have, Dawn and I go over, everybody's kind of got a piece of it. In the meantime, our office is also scanning other records, which are going up into IQS, another system. But this is going on, scanning all over the place. And then we have our vendor that's doing the imaging and scanning too. So, I mean, it's a humongous project. Humongous word, I don't know, it's very, very big. That's what I'll say. So, yeah, and then that goes to the next thing of having everybody learn Razorfish and how to find the records, where the records are going and everything. And of course, Tom is involved as well.
And I don't want to over talk, but one other question then.
Yeah.
I'm hearing more learning and things like that. So is it possible that maybe there will be more of these and maybe you and HR should work together to see like some sort of a longer plan for 2025 so that we can present them all at once?
Are you asking, is anybody else getting a raise?
Changes,
Changes?
yes.
I don't see that now. I think we've got our team put together. I will not be here after the end of the year, but we've been planning this years, okay? So I don't see that we're going to need that because we are paying vendors. Don't forget that we're paying vendors. So we couldn't do all the scanning ourselves or it would be impossible. It's impossible. It's millions and millions of documents. So our pages. So far as I know, I have no idea why we would need more.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Eileen?
I think it was Trish. I was just pointing to.
Oh, gotcha. So then I think, all right, Trish?
Mine gets answered.
So I appreciate you responding to the questions that I sent out earlier. This was not in the budget, but it also wasn't, in my recollection, even discussed during budget process with us. Now I'm hearing that there's been many, many, many meetings internally and that there's been no communication with us about that. That's a concern for me, that there's been some level of breakdown there.
Well, Trish, I would say that I imagine there's other department heads that meet many, many times with HR and then present a resolution. This is not unusual. So it wasn't that anybody was trying to hide it. It's just that it was complex and we want to do the right thing by our employees before we put something forth in a public forum. I don't think that's unusual. And I needed counsel of the two people that were helping me.
Well, I appreciate that, but putting something on the table outside of the normal budget process with no context or discussion ahead of time doesn't sit well with me as a legislator having to vote on this today.
What would we do instead? I'm curious because I've been here a long time and I've never had a problem.
I guess I want to say a few other things in terms of it being a very big project. It certainly is, and I appreciate the vision behind it and the work behind it. There's a lot of other departments here that take on massive projects and they don't come in asking for salary changes as a result. I can think of one, the Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations being one, multi-year, multi-stakeholder, having to learn a lot of new things, take on a lot of different aspects.
I didn't hear what you said the project was.
The Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations, which is going to be ongoing even after the regulations get adopted. I guess my point is that I'm not inclined to just approve a staff increase because somebody's taking on a new project. One question I have is, my thought around this Dreams project was that it was going to result in efficiencies and make work easier. So now we have a new title, higher responsibilities, $10,000 salary difference between the top grade, top step between those grades. I'm not comfortable voting on it today. And I guess leave it at that, but
Well, what
I don't understand exactly why right now, when the project hasn't even been completed, it's still in the middle of the project, what's happening?
So every single day we are working for a long time. Took a lot of planning. We have been meeting so many times over this. It's all about trying to put this project together. And this person has waited a tremendous amount of time for this to happen. I mean, really.
So what I'll say regarding that is, and then I'll get to you, Mark, if you still have a question,
I do.
is perhaps some of this is my fault because I've endeavored to distance myself from the office of the county clerk because I've announced my candidacy. So, but I will comment globally that it doesn't feel as though this is anything out of the ordinary. We have civil services reclassifications due to enhanced duties all the time. So I think it's better to discuss things, bring them forward and have them discussed rather than to not do that. So if I could just add that regarding, not specifically this issue, but just in general. And Mark, your question?
I apologize right off the get-go for the fact that I have not kept up with this particular resolution. So, but I do have a couple of questions. One, I'm assuming that with this upgrade, that this person's gonna be a supervisor.
He is a supervisor.
And they will work directly under the whoever is the county clerk, correct? It'll be
Yes,
next step under the county clerk, correct? This person will also be responsible for training all these places that are gonna be this microfiche, is that what you said?
laser feed.
Laser fees, I'm sorry. This person will be in charge of training all those folks in the county that are gonna do this, correct?
The vendor will come in and train some people, and he will be one of them, and we will be then training people too. And they will be there for support. But this person will have to manage that whole system. They will get support also from IT.
Well, I guess what my concern is I don't have a problem with them switching to the name. Where I get an issue is going from a 14 to a 22. I look at not just a year or 2 years or 10 years, I look at retirement. This person is going to retire, get a retirement at a much greater cost to the county versus what we're going to pay the $5,000 this year.
Well, if you had to hire a person to do what he does, you would be paying a lot more money. That's all I'm saying. And you know, you might have to do that. We'll put it out there.
Yes, Lydia.
And I think you said enhanced duties. I didn't hear enhanced duties. I heard this was performance-based. I think I specifically asked that question.
So help me out, what's,
Performance-based. It's a promotion based on performance, correct?
It's enhanced duties as well.
Okay,
Yes, I'm sorry,
That's all right.
Yeah, didn't understand this.
yeah, definitely.
That was my question. You did say performance-based. I was hoping you didn't mean that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, I need the clarification on that.
Yeah, I don't.
I wish that we did that here, but we don't.
No,
Um,
yeah. No, it isn't that. It's, you know, you want to look at all the paperwork and everything we've done since day one. It would take a person to come in and say, I'm doing that for what? And I am telling you, this is a very complex project, and we make sure our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed, and Fred is helpful with that.
I did have to take a minute to review this with other staff too, because it wasn't clear to me by the resolution alone. I was confused as to, and perhaps you did have these conversations with the chair and with the budget director about, or your operations officer about your entire plan for this moving forward. I didn't know, but to me, this kind of came out of
I'm the
nowhere.
budget director.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
so, you know, I shared Trish's concerns initially as well, so, you know,
I guess, you know, I just have to ask, at what point did you want me to come in and say we might be doing this, or we might, because you knew about the Dreams Project. I said how much work is being done. We're signing contracts. I don't know at what point I should have come in, because believe me, somebody should know that. I have been in meetings with HR. I don't know what else I could have done.
Hi. Oh, okay, we can do Heidi first and then,
I would just answer for myself by saying, as I said earlier, that since you mentioned that this was reviewed by the Civil Service Commission in October, that aligns with the budgeting process. And so I think I would have expected to see it in budget process decisions where we had the tentative budget. It would then have been budgeted for you. You wouldn't be looking at contingency, pulling from contingency already the second week in February.
I would say no one was in favor of me doing that.
I just want to answer for my own self, your question sooner than later, for me, in terms of when you can share information. I know a lot of department heads do come in and talk about the challenges or things that they're seeing with their department, talk about positions that you might need to change or upgrade. It's usually an ongoing conversation that we're aware of, that there's something going on. This I was not aware of. Obviously, you were working with internal staff on this, but it doesn't sit well with me. I would have rather have had it part of the initial discussion about the Dreams project and some of the staffing upgrades that you thought would be needed to support that project, so that when we voted on it, we had all the information up front, because these are ongoing costs beyond the initial investment in the project. So
So the
that's,
last thing in the world I'd want to do is surprise any of you, because that's not helpful. So, you know, my intention was not that. But this person should not be punished because something went a little by the wayside, and certainly it was not kept a secret. I mean, I was talking to two people in the county that are, you know, they knew all about it. So I guess I'm just sure of that. And I certainly would never have kept somebody out of that on purpose, you know, I mean.
I'm sorry. I apologize. And Sue, I'm really trying to understand this. So you said that this person came on and he's been working very hard with the expectation of getting a promotion / job, upgrade or whatever you want to call it.
No,
How long has this person been working for the county in this position? Currently?
he's been working since, trying to think of when he was hired.
10 years, 5 years?
Hired, I don't know how many years,
I don't need specific.
couple years.
2 years, 5 years?
3 years, let's say. He had a furlough, COVID. So no, I directed him to create a project that would take care of digitized records, so we wouldn't need a record center anymore. We would save on the building. We would save the way we do business. People could access these records quicker. And then when ARPA came, I said, isn't that awesome? Because now the taxpayers, I mean, sooner or later it goes back to the taxpayers, but the taxpayers wouldn't see it in their tax bills. Let me put it that way. And so that seemed a good fit. It was finally approved after like 2 years of working on it. And then we kept going. But this is a complex project. I couldn't have created it. I didn't know how complex it was going to be. It's a huge project. We're only the second county in the state to even attempt it. And so far, so good. I'm really proud of it. And I'm proud of the work he does and the whole team.
All right, so any further questions for Sue?
Just, this is a comment about the third whereas in the, it states, the position has evolved
Okay.
from a paper record system, this is what concerns me, to the more complex digital model of a records retention administrator. What concerns me is that all along, I have felt that what I've learned and heard is that this system is less complex. This system is more efficient, is better for the county on all kinds of levels. And then I'm seeing language in an actual resolution that's telling me that's evolved to a more complex system. How long is this going to be a more complex system? Because we bought into the digital record keeping for the opposite reason.
Yep. It'll be easier when everything is all done and everybody is trained. And Tom, I don't know if you want to speak technically about it, but he could probably tell you that, but it's a big job to get there. I mean, we're emptying a record center. We have to go through pilots. We have to have quality control. I mean, this is big. But until we get to the place where all of the county departments are using Laserfish and all of that, it's just like anything Tom is doing. It might be tough to get there. We got all these changes, but when you get there finally and people are using it, Tompkins County, for instance, just, they're moving into a new county office building. No filing cabinets are allowed. Okay, they need half the space they used to use. That's the kind of changes. We are talking about long-term changes in the way, the only way to start it is to go through this process. And sooner or later, counties are gonna have to do it. They are gonna have to do it, and we're doing it.
But I appreciate the explanation. It, it pulls together a lot for me. It makes me think about this position once again that's in front of us. Because what I hear is that there's a startup period that's complex, but then everything becomes a matter of day to day and should be easier because that was the reason for bringing it on and more efficient. Do we then, at that point, relook at this position and say, do we no longer need this kind of hire at this kind of rate?
I would say so, and I would also say it could be eventually, just like there'll be different departments in my office in the end, it could be a hybrid thing, or it could be somebody in IT. It could end up like that, but it's gonna be a good 5-6 years. That's all I'm saying. So yes, I'm glad you're thinking out that way. And will we need that kind of thing? Heidi, I don't know, but I think as we move on, we will know what to do at that time. We will.
Trish?
Thanks. Did civil service determine that this person is working on a title?
I don't think they did that analysis. I think they looked at the job that was being done, the job description, what was expected of that individual, what they had been doing, and made a determination to change the classification. I sort of answered your question, but pushed it in a slightly different direction. I hate to use the word out of type.
And was this the only title looked at, or were other models or other titles looked at for this?
It's thought about, and we did go through quite a process.
Can anybody speak to that process?
I don't think that there's anybody
Diane
here
might
that
be-
can
I'm
speak
not
to
sure
that.
if Diane's here, but
That's what I'm gonna do. If so,
This is Diane. I'm on. Can you repeat that question for me? I'm sorry.
I was thinking that it might be advantageous for us to table this at this point. So I'll entertain a motion to table it.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
And then, so I think it'd be in the best interest to get these questions answered and, get to the bottom of it. And we'll,
is there a possibility to have it move on after if you get answers?
well, we can bring it forward to Ways. We could, if the chairman of Ways wants to entertain it, or any legislator can bring it forward at the full legislature. But, and, so we have a motion and a second on that. I don't want to discourage anybody from answering any questions right now, but I just wanted to get that out there. So having, the motion and the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the ayes are carried.
Opposed?
To the table.
Opposed?
Fair enough. All right, so, do you guys want to hear more have Diane finish, or do you want to just compile the questions and get them answered, from Sue? All right, the latter it is then. Everybody comfortable with that? All right, thank you, Sue.
Welcome, thank you.
While we're here underneath the auspices of the county clerk, I would entertain a motion and a second.
No, we won't.
I can do that, or can I? I can abstain from it though, right? How do I do it? Do I have to get someone else to do it?
I think you should get somebody else to do it.
Co-chair
Vice Chair?
or vice chair?
Oh, yeah, you were right to begin with. Hans, what you said.
Right.
Yeah.
We have GO4, setting a salary for the county clerk for the next year or years. Entertain the motion.
Move it.
The second,
Like Gail, second for discussion.
it's open for discussion.
I was just curious in terms of the salary and the way the salary was set for this position. It looks to be the identical salary that we currently have, which is associated with an individual that's been in the position for many years, very seasoned. Have we looked at salary ranges for this position? How do we know this is reasonable starting salary for somebody that's coming into the position for the first time?
Chris wants.
Chris,
To answer Trish's question, the salary I put in the resolution, there was no direction whatsoever. It's the identical salary. The office of the county clerk does not change regardless of who is in it. It's still plenty early enough for people to file petitions to run for that office. And who knows, there may be another person that's a county clerk that's been a county clerk for 35 years, 40 years. May run for the office, or you may get somebody that has never even been to the county clerk's office. You don't know, and it's just, I just extended the salary. That's what you guys decided was the office salary. I left it alone, and I think that's for you guys to discuss internally, up, down, it's entirely up to you. But the salary that's in there, from what the carryover from what it currently is.
anybody else, any comments? Julia,
Thank you. I think it's important that we do this now because it was an epic failure and egg on our faces when we messed over the treasurer and he had to walk into a position with a lesser salary all of a sudden. I think that was the wrong answer and constituents are still talking about it. I'm all for leaving the salary where it is. Thank you.
anybody else, any comments? Jim,
So I'm not on the committee, but I have to echo a little bit about what our attorney said is these aren't job interviews. These are public elected positions. So if you think that you're going to gear this salary based on possibly who's going to get elected or who's going to run, you just kind of got to gear it based on what that position probably would get paid. And it's probably not enough, but what would get paid in a normal business when we're running a business. The difference here is it's an elected position.
any other questions or comments? Trish,
I don't disagree with you, Jim. I actually would like to see an escalator and whatever salary we have for this position. I think we've done that for other positions. But I guess my question just was, is it a reasonable salary given what other clerks make in the region? I know we've had salary increases over time that have built on one on top of another for this position for current person in who's been here for a long time and has, warranted those increases. I'm not opposed to the salary, and I don't believe that's a great point. I don't think we should be figuring this out midstream. But I guess I would like to see or put out there maybe some kind of a full escalator for the position so that we have that set for the four-year term.
So if I'm hearing, I'm sorry,
Jim,
so if I'm hearing you right, you don't like that it's the same number all 4 years, that there should be some kind of escalator. You're not $83,047 an issue. It's just that we're going to pay that for 4 years.
Well, there's two issues. I'm questioning that 83 base. Our attorneys advised that goes along with the position, not the person. Whatever the base is, I feel like we should have a COLA associated with it.
So you could amend this and say, we're gonna base it at 83 and then say 1.5% each year for the next 4 years.
Something like that, yeah.
I'm going to ask our attorney here. Are all the other electeds have on an escalator at this point? Is the sheriff?
I can't recall. I think the sheriff was done early, but it wasn't done prior to the petition deadline, unfortunately. And there was escalators in his term. So I'll pull up that resolution if you give me a moment.
I was gonna say, I mean, I'm interested, I'm just looking for continuity. I wish all of this was lumped together at one time, all the elected officials, so we all know what to expect. It's just, you know, I had to go back and look at, even if it was the same salary, if it was a different salary, I think I was confused on an email with you on that, but it is the same, so that's good. But yeah, and I wanna know if they're all on an escalator, and then what is the escalator? I mean, is it varying differently between electeds? And that's not fair. I mean, we're gonna judge it that way too, so I'm not sure I'm in a position to support this.
I'll be talking about this at ways, but I thought your initial question was, what was the process taken other than Chris admitting he just took the current salary and put it in there and left it for the 4 years? Have we,
That was the process.
the question was that there was no real look at, you know, what does this position pay in comparable counties? Or, I mean, is this a reasonable salary? Is it more than, you had no assurance either way.
Yeah. Excuse me.
If Elaine's done, well, then, you know, there was plenty of time to look at this before today as far as whether 83,000, no, I'm saying.
Right.
We didn't, I don't think we got there just as we don't do merit raises, as Aileen
Yeah.
had pointed out. We've done raises just based on whatever. So we got to this number somewhere.
Well, he
And-
just admitted he just took
No,
some
no, no.
salary.
Time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You were my
Okay,
favorite.
okay, all right, go ahead.
We got here over time.
Yep.
Through a process. And there was times before this came up that the questions we're asking now should have been asked, or we shouldn't have gotten here. You know, we've made it to this point with the 83,000 and some change. So if we're questioning that now, why? Why weren't we questioning, how did we get here before? Why weren't we questioning that before? To Tricia's point, the escalator, and to Aileen's point, it's never fair. You don't know, it's like contracts. But 1 point, I just made up 1.5. I don't know if that's fair or not fair. I just use that as an example. I think that's what the legislators get, right?
I don't know.
I think it's 1%.
One, see, that's not fair. But you see what I'm saying? You know, everybody has different things depending on the jobs to keep up with these positions, keep up with the public sector, or again, you just never know. As Chris said, you never know who's going to run.
Right.
You know, the county administrator for Onondaga County is not an accountant. I don't think that was his previous job. He got elected again. So whatever he was before, he's doing a great job in their opinion. So, you know, we're starting to argue about something that gradually moved along to this salary. And now it sounds like people are saying, well, maybe it should be lower, or maybe it's too much. Or that discussion should have been a while ago. We're here, as Chris said, he took the salary out of what it is. I think the only thing we should be talking about maybe is how do we keep that thing, you know, do we escalate it? Or I've signed a contract with a company for 3 years with no raise. It all depends on what they wanted to offer you. And it was worth it to me.
I think we're only talking about the escalator.
Oh, okay.
Is that true? That's what.
Well, that's not what I
That's what I
heard.
was trying to clarify from
Yes.
you.
It sounded like we were talking about, is this, you know, what are other counties paying? You know,
That was my question, is how do we look at this, and how do we come up with the same exact salary? And I think our attorney answered that we just took the salary because it's based on the position, not the person. So that's a fair answer. And you explained it even better. You know, we got this point after time, one look after another and one decision after another. So there's the salary, but I do think the escalator is worth a conversation. This position oversees 4 departments in the county. Given escalators to our non-bargaining. I personally would like to see something in there for the person that ultimately gets in that position.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
While I'm waiting for Tricia.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me like maybe we could change or fix this with one word and just add the word starting salary at whatever it is, 83 and change. And leave it at that. That's what you're going to start at. Maybe possibly performance-based somewhere down the road, but to get the resolution passed, maybe make I don't want to.
Fred,
The other thought is if there's an agreement as to what the escalator should be, just make an amendment. That in year 2, it goes up by X percent, year 3, either the same percent or a different percentage.
So Chris has brought this to my attention. So the sheriff has the escalator, the coroner has the escalator. My point is, we need somebody to examine what are those escalators? Like, I don't want somebody to go up 3, somebody's going up 1. They're all elected officials. I mean, should we have some sort of standardized expectation, right? That's all I'm curious about is how do these measure up? And I don't think it's right for us to just throw numbers out right now. So I like the idea of just saying starting or making a change and then bringing it to ways with the proper escalator.
It should be fairly easy to compute. Sorry. No, go ahead.
excuse me. Bob,
In many regards, to think of this as another way, these are contracts. If this position is a contract for 4 years, those are contracts for probably 2 years. They do have escalators. The thinking is, what do we want to do and establish? We've started doing this. And I agree with Daleen that we need to have some continuity along the way and decide. But basically what we're talking about is contracts here. This is a 4-year contract for this person here. So the way to want to do it, do we want to include, the incremental increases? What is we should figure that out and that right flat across the board to make it viable for everybody.
go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to say was that, whether, and I'll pick on Sue if she's still here. Yeah, she is. If she were running again, this resolution would still be here the same way.
Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind, no.
The legislature has set the salary previously at that amount for the office of the county clerk. I did not adjust it, didn't change it. You guys said it, it's still there. What you choose to do with it is entirely up to the 15 of the weighted majority, but the recommendations would come from this committee, and whether it goes up it's up to you guys. It's entirely up to you. The only issue that I would say with setting the salary and keeping it flat for the full term is that this is the preferred method, and the other method is disfavored under the law. And I say that because to change the salary of an elected or appointed official during their term requires a local law, which is subject to a permissive referendum, which means if a petition comes in, then Mr. Camardo and Mr. Badman are going to put on the ballot, should the new county clerk get a raise? And the answer, no matter who it was, is always going to be no. So you're really, and that's embarrassing to have a referendum on whether or not you're one of your countywide elected officials, their salary. This is simply by resolution of the legislature, and that's it.
In the past, they've always done the 4 years or whatever, but there is you go up just like with anybody else in the county, whatever stays.
Good, Joe?
Thank you. Continuity is key. Using the word not fair is not something that we should be saying or doing in this room. I think it smells like a committee, and I hate to say that because we have a ton of committees, but I think that everybody needs to be reviewed and we need to establish something that is fair and has continuity. But for this one, I would like to be able to recommend that we accept the starting salary and increase it based on whatever is fair compared to the other two.
Mr. Chairman.
How do I verbalize that?
Yeah, why can't we just do an amendment, start with that salary? What is the escalator for the coroner and the sheriff? And do the same for this? Is it the percentage, Chris, over the next 3 years? So just figure out the percentage over the next 3 years for those two positions and do it here.
Year one to year two is 3%. That's as much as I've
For the sheriff so
mathematically
far.
figured
I
out.
think the top of the corner is the same too. I believe it is.
Yeah, they're the same.
They're 4-year terms. I mean, it's not
3-year, 3% increase.
in 4 years.
3% a year.
Well, then that's what this should be. If they're 3% a year for the other two elected positions for 4-year terms, why shouldn't this be the same? I mean, if we're gonna be fair, what we're all talking about being fair, it doesn't matter who sits in this position. It's a salary for our county treasurer. And if the other two are going up 3% a year, then this should. Just my opinion.Hy make one different than the other?
I think they are all different. That's the issue being brought
That's
forward.
what that's what I'm trying to find out.
Well,
Yeah.
We need to
Can't
evaluate
be
all
that
of them.
hard.
Maybe Lydia's right. Maybe we do.
You
need to
just
have
find out the
committee
salary
that
for them.
looks at all of them and comes forward with a recommendation.
That's gonna drag things out.
Yeah.
Not for
I'm
I'm not
this.
saying to hold this
No,
up,
for
but
this
I think
one.
moving forward, it's something that we need to, I agree with.
I know
Lydia.
you love me.
Look at it and clean it up, so this doesn't become a discussion every single time.
I come to your office anytime.
We'll probably have some time between now and Ways and Means to
Do this one.
figure out an escalator for this one.
Is that what we want to do? Refer to Ways and Means?
Yeah.
To get that answer. I can't. not this committee.
Everybody there then? Okay, we'll pull it for tonight and
Would you pull it or table it?
next week, is it? Yeah,
Table it.
Move it.
You want to table it?
If it's tabled, it stays here.
okay.
Oh,
We'll table it.
no,
It
no.
stays in government ops. It
No.
doesn't
Pull it for Ways and Means.
Pull it and refer it.
either pass it, you can refer it to a committee, standing committee. That's correct.
So pull the Ways and Means is what is correct now in this situation, right?
You can refer it to Ways. Heidi just said it. You can refer it to a standing committee, so Ways and Means. Or you can pass it with the expectation that the chair of Ways would see that it gets amended.
Okay, well,
Clear as mud.
we'll transfer it to Ways and Means.
Just refer it to,
Everybody's happy with it.
Refer to Ways and Means.
Refer
refer to Ways and Means.
Okay.
Do we have to vote on that?
Chris, you can come back.
Do we vote?
I would think you'd have to vote on it.
You have to vote on it.
Busy.
I move to refer to Ways and Means.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried.
Can I ask a point of clarification? Can I ask a point of clarification? You're looking for some data, which is how the other elected officials' salaries have changed in the existing laws. For instance, if the coroner and sheriff went up by 3%, just did that, how far back do you want us to go for the number? But they have a 3% increase. Do you want us to go back a couple of years? You want us just to look at the existing electeds and see where their salary was and how it changed from last time?
I'd like to recommend that we look at what's happening now and consider emulating that, rather than going back historical isn't going to help us here.
I think I understand it. We'll get you some information.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm done, Chris.
You said that 5 minutes ago.
Chris,
You left, you might be in charge.
He said he wasn't had enough.
Steve. Steve, grab Chris.
Chris.
we managed two county clerks. So I think if we could go back, because the county, well,
IT.
no, I wanted to get back. I never forgot you, buddy. I think the county attorney, we did, although we did them, you guys do have a resolution authorizing the county attorney's office to advertise for code enforcement officer. I want to entertain a motion at this point for that.
Move for discussion.
Motion, a second. All right, discussion. G05. Yes, sir.
Do we still have the option of having the state take it over?
We do with all the warts that is accompanied by, yes.
Yes.
So code enforcement, it's usually done in a local municipal level. Let's start with the towns and villages. They all have, most of them have code enforcement officers. If they go out of the business, so to speak, that rolls up to the county. In this case, the county is the code enforcement officer for the village of Cato, has been for some time. To get to Hans's question, can the county get out of the code enforcement office duties? Absolutely, yes. It rolls up to the state. You'll get a bill from the state for those services. And it is the state that comes into your building, county-owned buildings, and tells you what you have to do, what you can't do. So that has pros and cons.
Just cons.
I was afraid of that.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, now information technology, I believe.
Good evening. You have my report. I also sent out a summary last week to the committee on the follow-up from the employee monitoring productivity management software. So at this time, if you have any questions or follow-up or feedback for me, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Any questions for?
I have feedback for you. I was very pleased at your summarization about the department heads responsiveness to wanting training on how to train in remote situations. I found that to be a really responsive response to the feedback you brought to them through this body. I also found it very interesting that you looked at a less expensive. You told us that, you've made a mistake. There's $12 a month per, but that the group came up with this option around if there maybe was a troubling situation around productivity, then the software would be available to help a particular department head monitor that remote work in the event of a troubling situation around productivity. And the expense was a huge difference downward from what you had talked about. So I have a lot more clarity and frame of mind about where I stand with that.
Yeah, I think we've established a good process and a framework going forward that'll make it, not only straightforward for all department heads, but also provide them some of the training. Also, I have a survey that we're going to be ready to deploy to capture, maybe some things we weren't thinking of, so like I said, I think it's a good cost-effective solution to the problem.
Yes, I think it's great. I'd love to commend all the department heads on the collaborative work and the discussions that brought it to the place where you described it in the narrative. It's good thinking, good work, good critical thinking.
All right, any other questions regarding his briefing? Otherwise, we'll get to the resolution. All right.
So this is just an agreement we have with our existing agreement we have with Cayuga BOCES to our shared IT service that we have in regards to network monitoring software. It's a one-year agreement. This has already been planned out and budgeted for, just to accept the agreement.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Lydia, yes, ma'am.
Are there any other additional costs, like if there are going to be any upgrades or anything along the way in addition to the 2593? No. Thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I believe that's all. Thank you. And I think last but not least is veterans. We have two resolutions.
Get them done.
These on.
Sorry, I'm getting my connection going here.
No worries. Welcome.
All right. You see my report, continuing to maintain services for veterans. We have now got a good team in place, and I think we're providing good services to veterans. And one of the things we've been working on for quite a while is more outreach, and the Dwyer program is definitely helping us with that. And we've got a part-time veteran service officer who's connected in the veteran community, and he's been bringing in veterans to review their claims. And we had, at least this past week, a couple of Purple Heart awardees who came in and had not had their claim. There were some issues with their claims, and we got to review them. And I think that we're going to be able to help them out even a little bit more than they have been. So that's definitely moving along. Going into the future, looking at using the Dwyer program to do events to support veterans and different events that bring veterans in who we might not otherwise identify. And that's what we're moving for. And so one example I put in there is each year up in Fairhaven, they do a Veteran Appreciation Fishing Day. And right now it's scheduled for June. And I believe with the Dwyer funding, as we go forward, we'll be able to support that and many other events. But I put that out there as an example of what we can support. I was asked to speak. It wasn't a big event, but it was still, I thought it was significant enough that the state has some veteran information kiosks that are going up at welcome centers around the state. And they opened one in Geneva. I RSVP'd I would attend, and the organizer asked me if I would say a few words. And the gist of my comments were, one of the things that the state is doing well is in training us around the state. All the county veteran service agencies are doing a phenomenal job with training. And I pointed that out as a good state-county relationship. There are some other things they're talking about, having mobile VBA. They call them at the state level VBAs, veteran benefit advisors. And we'll see how they impact around the state. But I'm not a big fan of that, because I think we can do it better locally. But they're not expanding too much. But if they reach out more, I think the more of the county VSAs are going to speak up, saying, hey, that's our job essentially. So probably the next major veteran event is Memorial Day. I definitely want to get our VSOs out to different areas around the county, and that's the direction we're moving.
Okay, any questions? Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Kev, the Purple Heart veterans, is that going to be retroactive for them, the money that they've been losing all this time?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, thank you.
So that's part of my frustration, is that there are veterans out there who are eligible for benefits, and for various reasons, they have not sought them out. Like one of the veterans, he started a family, and you get additional, if you have a certain percentage rating, you can get additional funds based on having a family with your disability rating. And he had never come in to add dependents. And so that was one of the things that we talked to him about. And so he'll be helping take care of his family.
Thank you. That's a shame.
Any further questions before we get into the resolutions? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Kevin, it's Lydia. Thank you again for everything you're doing for our vets. Is there some sort of a punch list that you use that can be shared with us to maybe talk to our veterans in our communities? Are you qualified and receiving this, or, kind of a list of what maybe when we're having conversations, we can say, do you have these things? Have you applied for these things? So that they don't end up in a situation where they're longer without benefits.
So we've come up with what I call veteran inquiry sheet, where we ask them a series of questions because each veteran's story is different. And some veterans are eligible for something where others aren't. And so there's really no cookie cutter answer to the questions. There's a lot of nuance. And over the last year, I've learned, what these nuances are. And but I can send you the inquiry sheet. It kind of gives you an idea. Like we ask about if you get the veteran tax credit. That's one of the big ones. Do you get the veteran property tax exemption? Do you have a disability rating? And then have you had any conditions related to that you could get an upgrade? It's tough because each veteran situation is different.
Chairman, can we have that sent to the clerk and maybe distribute it to everybody?
I can send an email to the legislators if that's okay.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions before we get into resolutions? Okay, hearing none, GO 7 and 8, it appears to be the funding for the Joseph P. Dwyer peer-to-peer and funding for
So let me explain this. I submitted this late, and so they're essentially similar resolutions, and we have to decide between the two. And Sheila graciously added it because we had not finalized what we were doing, but with Fred's input, one is more artfully written than the other. So GO7 is with Fred's input, and GO8 was my initial resolution. The intent of the resolution is, and being new to this and working through how the county works, part of my intent here is to limit the burden on the legislature to look at each individual event that we're going to be doing, because we're going to be doing some larger ones, obviously, which would require more scrutiny, and some other smaller ones, which I wouldn't think would need to come all the way up to the legislature. And so that was the intent. And as I said, I think we probably will go with GO7 because that's Fred's input if he wants to add.
All right, so Mr. Westfall, go ahead.
Somebody would move GO7 and you can ignore GO8.
Perfect.
GO8 is an earlier version.
Move it.
All right, motion on, again, for clarity, is GO7.
Yeah.
And a second by Lydia. Any discussion on GO7? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, we're almost to the finish line, just one more. It is a late addition. It was brought to my attention just prior to this meeting.
Do we have to move to do something with GO8 first?
No, as I understood it, you
You're gonna pull it and it'll not.
all right, so the chairman pulls it?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that the chairman pulled GO8. So should we refer to this, Chris, as GO9?
Sure.
So on your desk is a legislation will refer here to forward be referred to as GO9. It is, and I can have Chris explain it, but as I understand, it's some basically housekeeping details that need to be ironed out, such as the time of the full ledge. And then there's one other one.
So I think it's,
Senior Citizen Day, right?
yeah,
Yeah, so time of the full ledge and Senior Citizen Day. So there's been some correspondence going around. So again, it was late, but better late to this committee than added at the full legislature. So I thought it prudent to bring it forward. So
Can you read it? I don't have a copy.
you can have my copy. So I'll just give her everybody else to digest that.
Oh, yes. So we're changing the times.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, right?
No, I'm good with it. Okay. I know what they are.
So at this point, I'll entertain a motion in a second on GO9.
Move it.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to do the late add-on. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? Let's hear it.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All right, I'm not even gonna do the all in favor.
Aye. Thank you. We have a quorum. And I'll entertain a motion for the minutes to approve. January 10th.
Move it, Mark. Second, Basile.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. The appointments, I'll entertain a motion to bundle the appointments. Want them bundle or separated?
Move it to bundle, Mark.
Second, Lydia.
Second, Lydia. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Steve Lynch, Planning and Economic Development, has submitted his report. He's also going to give us a brief presentation. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have my report, and if there's anything that you have any questions about it, please let me know. I did want to, in lieu of talking about my report, I wanted to go through this brief presentation. It's only 9 slides. It'll be brief. This is about the Lake Ontario Regional Dredging Plan, Regional Dredging Management Plan. And the reason I'm bringing this up is at the end of this conversation, I just want to get some direction. It doesn't have to be tonight, but in order to bring perhaps a resolution to the March Planning Committee. I didn't want to just do that without speaking to this committee. Next slide, please. So some of the background in this whole initiative is that for many, many years, decades, I believe, Jim, there has not been sustained dredging of the channels between Lake Ontario and the various harbors and bays all along the south shore of Lake Ontario. And because of that, there's been times, for example, in Little Sodas Bay, when certain sailing ships can't even get into the bay because the channel has filled up with silt, and it's impacted the economy of people that make their living on the bay. So in Niagara all the way up past Cayuga County. It documented the unmet dredging needs. It documented the economic impact of what the economy is up there tied to all of this waterline commerce. And it calculated the frequency and volume of dredging for each of these places. Some places need to be dredged every year. Some places need to be dredged every 3 years. Has a lot to do with the hydrology and the morphology of the lake. So that report was created in April 2017. The County of Cayuga authorized an MOU between Cayuga, Wayne, Orleans, and Niagara counties to implement the Regional Dredging Management Plan. Part of that authorization, it was in April of 2017, was a $5,000 cost share out of the Economic Development Fund at the time, sort of put into the kitty with these other counties to try to start working on the next phase of this plan to get the Wendell Engineering to do grant applications and so on and so forth. At the time, it said that the legislature would designate somebody to be the liaison between this Regional Dredging Council and the legislature, and they appoint the planning director. Next slide. Whoop. I think you're ahead of me. No, one more. There we go.
This one?
No, one more. One more. There we go. Thank you. So in 2019, Orleans County, on behalf of the members of the Regional Dredging Council, at that time it was Niagara, Orleans, Cayuga County, and Wayne County, prepared a CFA grant application for an engineering consultant to secure implementation funding in order to try to move this effort forward. New York State, a grant award of $125,000, requiring a 50-50 match cost share of $62,500. The idea would be that each group would participate if they would. The CFA award and state contracts between late 2019 and late 2020. By the time they got the contract, the flooding had happened up on Lake Ontario, and New York State established the regional, the Lake Ontario Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative, or the READY program. And that was part of that program was to catch up on all of the dredging. New York State spent $15 million doing all of the permitting and all of the dredging for 20 harbors, all the way from Niagara, all the way up to St. Lawrence. So because that work was getting done, the CFA was put on hold. The grant was awarded, but nobody moved the project forward. Next slide, please. So the New York State did that dredging between 2021 and 2022. And then in 2022, in September, they took everything that they had done, all of the permits, some of them, most of them sunset in 2023. We're happy that Little Soda Bay sunsets in December 2025, which is good. But all of the permits and the disposal plans and all of that was handed off to this regional dredging council. The state said, okay, we came in, we caught everybody up. We think it's a good idea to do this regional dredging approach, economy of scale with everybody working together to hire a contractor to do the dredging with everybody putting in their share. So they did a handoff in September of last year and said, here we go. Yeah, you got everything you need to establish an operational framework to continue this work. Next slide, please. So now we're at a point where we're saying, okay, let's activate that 2019 CFA grant. The CFA grant extends to December 31st, 2024. So there's a couple of years left on that grant. Oswego County has shown their interest in joining the Regional Development Council, going from 5 counties up to 6 counties. And I believe the total will be $10,417 per share in order to activate this grant. So next slide, please. So this slide simply shows sort of the scope of work that would be done under that grant. They would update the 2014 Regional Dredging Master Management Plan, including an engineering and analysis of the dredging needs, the frequency of dredging for each harbor, the volumes, the disposal options, the scheduling. They would renew, the engineering company would renew the permits that are sunsetting in 2023 so that we don't lose the momentum of having those permits available. As I said, Little Soda Bay expires in 2025. They would calculate the county by county cost share. You know, the concept is that one county acts as sort of the administrator and the bank, and the participating counties along the south shore of the lake all contribute their fair share. If Cayuga County needs, I don't know, 20,000 cubic yards dredged, and it has to happen every 3 years, they estimate the cost of that, and that's how much you put into the kitty every year, so that when your turn to be dredged comes up, it's done and you don't have to worry about it. So they're going to also update the calculations of what the economic impact is in a way, like if you don't dredge, if these things are closed down. And the other thing I would add, because Jim asked me this question before the meeting, once you have that contractor in place and it's a long-term contract, it would allow some of the other communities and private ownerships, private marinas that might need dredging, they would be allowed to contract, you know, with their own money, but contract and take advantage of this economy of scale of this dredging operation that would be going on year to year. So there would be that option as well. Next slide, please. So I just would mention that the 2014 plan, the numbers that they came up with and the numbers that the state came up with when they did the READY dredging was that these harbors, you know, taken large, support over 1,350 jobs, fishing, tourism, that type of thing, marinas. Contribute over $94 million in collective annual economic activity and contribute 3.8 million to state tax revenues. And, you know, something similar to the localities as well. Jim, I think you probably are more conversant with numbers for tourism up in your area. Next slide, please. So this is the last slide. So as I said, I'm seeking direction, perhaps support regarding a March legislative resolution authorizing the contribution of Cayuga County's share of matching funds for this grant so that this work can continue and we can continue to be part of this collective of counties to address the regional dredging needs that are in Cayuga County. And once the work of the 2019 grant is done, and we have those numbers, those updated numbers of this is how much it will cost each county, then we would come back and we would ask for support for an MOU saying we would like to join this group. There's a draft MOU floating around, and one of the things that all of the counties have said is, you know, we don't want to lock ourselves in forever to this thing if that's what happens. You know, so there will be an escape clause, if you will, for counties to get out of, you know, an MOU, you know, if they decide it's cheaper or better to go it alone or to not do the dredging. So that's my update, and I just want to just walk up here in March with a resolution for you know, with money. This gives you an opportunity to understand what this is about. If you have questions for me that occur to you afterwards tonight, I'm happy to answer them. So that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Trish?
Yeah. Thank you for that presentation and the heads up on the resolution that's coming forward next month. I'm curious about when they dredge, what happens to that material that they dredge? Does it get put on farmland, or is that what happens?
It depends. It's all situational. Some material will be allowed to be placed out into the lake, and some material is allowed to be brought up on land and placed in other places. It depends on a whole range of factors.
Gotcha. Okay.
Anybody else for Steve?
The only thing I would add is next month on the night of the planning committee is the night that we are doing a public meeting for the Erie Canal Trail project with the rewatering up between Fort Byron and Brutus. I think we had scheduled that before the dates got shifted around with committee. So I will be here, I think. My staff will be up there, but I just wanted to, the dates in your report, but I just wanted to kind of apologize that it's on a night that none of you can come.
I'd like to ask you a question because I have no idea what it means. Annual updates to the Cayuga County Agricultural District 5.
Mm-hmm.
I may have asked about it before and forgotten, but could you explain that a little bit, what that means?
The Cayuga County, a number of years ago, we used to have 8, I think, separate
7 or
ag
8,
districts. And each one had a staggered, like you had to renew them. So at one point, we just took them all and made it one big agricultural district, which simplified a lot of work for the county. Once a year, there's a 30-day window where people that don't have land in the ag district can apply to put land into the ag district. And look, you know, for those right to farm benefits and so on that are connected to that. The only time that you could take land out of an ag district was at the 8-year renewal, which I think is 2027. You know, we did it eight years ago from then, something like that. So it's a 30-year window. It doesn't cost anybody any money. We make the applications available online. People can contact our office. We put, you know, notices in the paper and so on. Shoot out something to the towns and villages so that they know about it. I mean, there's hardly any county that are not in an agricultural district. You know, schools and villages and stuff like that.
Can. I'm not gonna ask this question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your information.
Mhm.
I don't want to plant any seeds.
You know where to get me.
I do. Thank you.
Was that an agricultural
It
joke?
was a punny one.
Three resolutions. They're really all relatively routine resolutions. I know there might have been a question about the sole source of the Community Science Institute and the work that they do. They've been doing that work now since 27, well, they've been doing the work since 2017 on the monitoring, which is one of them, which is a $20,000 contract. And in the last couple of years, 2 years, I believe, no, last year and this year is the $8,000 contract with them to do the HABs monitoring and to do the analysis of all the samples they take and to put that map up that shows on Cayuga Lake, this is where the HABs have been found and so on. And that $8,000 is matched by Seneca County and Tompkins County because the whole program is cost $24,000. So these just authorize us to go into those contracts with this group, which is the only one doing that work right now on the lake.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I have a couple questions. Does the state have a program for HABs monitoring and steam monitoring program at the moment?
They do some monitoring with citizen scientists, so to speak. Groups that they train to go out and look, like on Owasco Lake, they'll go out. I'm a volunteer and I will go out and I will look, and if I see something, I'll take a sample, etc. The state doesn't do the type of monitoring that is done on here in Cayuga Lake and the kind of reporting that's done on Cayuga Lake. So this is an advanced version of that.
So the state doesn't have a program where they scientifically monitor HABs programs on or
They
stream?
do, but they do it through training citizen volunteers that do the observation and the collection, etc.
Okay, I probably have 100 questions, but I'll limit it to 2. If we, enter with these contracts, what happens with this information and what will it be compared to?
So a lot of this information, especially the stream monitoring, which is the larger one, but also the HABs, they're compared to the other lakes, information that may be available, but it's also compared to Cayuga Lake, year in and year out. That's why when we do these projects, we try to continue to do the testing to see what the trends are and see what the scientific analysis is so that we know what is happening in the water itself and what's happening with the HABs or with the streams. So that information is gathered. It's usually put up pretty soon after the analysis is done as live on a website. So residents can go and look at it and click on it and find out what was in the samples, when it was taken, and so on and so forth. And then Citizen Science Institute does an annual report that summarizes all of the findings for that year. And I'm fairly sure I shared that with the legislature, when it does come out. But I know how much information you all receive from everybody.
I guess my concerns are, I have a huge interest in the water quality of Cayuga Lake and Owasco Lake. I know they're our drinking water source, and I'm very concerned about things that are being currently printed in the paper. They use the word pollution or polluted, and that bothers me greatly. I'm not against, monitoring of these programs, but I want to make sure that, hey, the county, if there are state programs, and you alluded to that, it's a volunteer program or whatever, but we have soil and water, just, building, we have employees there that, they're the experts. Why aren't we using these folks?
Well, all of this analysis is pretty technical, and the Citizen Community Science Institute has a certified lab that's certified by DEC. So that's the other benefit of this, is that the data that comes out of this is considered valid data that is certified by a certified lab, so that other policy decisions or other mitigation efforts or other conclusions can be drawn from it. I don't, with all deference to Soil and Water Conservation District, I don't think that they have the capacity to take these samples and to do the lab analysis. They don't have a lab.
Well, you've brought up Doug. Doug, I hate to throw you in front of the bus, but I will a little bit. Do you have a comment on these?
The lab stuff, yeah, we don't do too much with lab stuff. We certainly would be glad to help out any way we can with looking at the data or offering our 2 cents. But in terms of the actual sampling portion, we would struggle with that.
And this money is in our budget already. It's just, the authorization to, go into the contract with the professional services contract.
Did you,
We're just having an awful lot of discussion. I don't believe these have been moved. I don't know if we should have done that first. These motions.
Oh, I guess I didn't,
Resolution.
I guess nobody's moved in.
Right, we haven't moved it anymore.
all right,
Okay, I'm sorry. I
so
apologize.
excited, we forgot. Entertain a motion to,
Do we want a bundle?
it's up to you.
I'll move it as a bundle.
A second. Sorry.
All in favor?
Not discussion.
We're still in discussion.
Okay.
Just clearing that up.
Right. Motion to bundle.
Where they did that.
Okay.
So now we can continue
Discussion.
talking, the discussion.
I must have fallen off somewhere. All right, well, we're gonna continue the discussion.
Sure.
All in favor? We don't
Well,
need to,
No, we just need to have the conversation.
already.
I do have one thing on, and it might be just a typo. It's not really reference to Habs, because all I can think of is the Montreal Canadiens, but the first one is, mine says PL 12. It probably was a typo. It should have been PL 1. PL 1, PL 2, PL 3.
Right.
Mine says PR1.
So is mine.
Oh, it's in the Dropbox, it's 12.
Is it in the Dropbox?
Yeah,
It's 12.
it does.
So please just check that whenever we do the final signing of the resolution.
Oh, yeah, I
But
see what you're saying.
this, so I will comment on this
On the
program.
resolution itself.
This isn't much far off from it. We're doing it with 3 other counties.
Yes.
And they're just collecting data. They're not really saying whether the lake's polluted or not polluted. They're just providing.
They're collecting data and doing the analysis and providing the results.
Yeah.
And also showing the public like where these things are on a real-time basis, to the extent that they can.
I don't recall seeing the year-end report, but I did go online and check. And Habs seemed to be down a little bit this year at a certain point in time. I don't know if that's an indicator.
You mean in 2022?
Yes. I don't know if the streams showed any,
Is it a wet year or a dry year?
pretty much drier, wasn't it?
Dry year.
Probably has something to do with it.
Okay. Any more
Makes sense.
discussion?
Well, Steve, I guess I'll stop down to the office and we can sit and chat. I like I said, I got 100 questions, but we'll keep it short for today.
At your disposal.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Okay. Did we motion a bundle remove?
Yes.
We did.
Now we just
Gotta
need to vote.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Me.
Opposed. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan? So let's see, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's Kelly.
Sorry, Dan.
Psych.
I'm a creature of habit. I'm like, it's my turn. Sorry. Good evening, everybody. A few things in my report that I just want to touch on. One thing I want to thank Brittany. She's been helping me. I will also be bringing two resolutions forward next month in terms of our lease agreement with employment and training specifically, and also a subtenant that I have currently leasing space from me. So those will be coming forth next month. And then looking to the future, I've been talking with the Department of Labor's property management folks and Access VR, who is also a subtenant of mine. I have two currently. Working with the state is very, very, as we see from the Department of Labor's lease, it is this big, and ours is tiny. They have very, very specific requirements to lease space from us. So the biggest project moving forward is when we move to the workforce development building, and how much space they need and what requirements they have, and if it matches what they are looking at in terms of construction for the new build. This project started in 2017 before I was in this role, and there were discussions made and not a lot of involvement with the state. And now speaking with the property management in order for them to move with us, this is something that's going to be critical for me and my department. If they can't have their needs met, they can't move with us. If they can't move with us, we would lose our certification as a one-stop center that we've had since 2003. So we need to make sure, working with Dr. Durant and working with the Department of Labor, that we can meet their needs. They have specific square footage that they need that was just announced to me today. And hopefully we can meet that in the new space, because it is definitely a different type of space than we currently have. So I do anticipate that this will be quite a project for me and Brittany too. And, with the Department of Labor and also with Dr. Durant. I have met with him and he's willing to work with us in terms of what we need, and hopefully we can make it work. But I will be communicating what's going on moving forward. So that is my update with that. It looks like the report from Dr. Durant was that the bid has or will be going out for the new construction, probably not seeing any type of move until spring of 2024, possibly. So we have time. However, with the New York State Department of Labor lease, it takes 18 to 24 months to get into an agreement. So this is something that we're working on now to make sure that we're all set, because they won't be able to move in if we don't have it tidied up. So that's one thing that I have been working on. Another thing, we do have some businesses coming in the next couple of weeks to recruit. Nucor Steel has never recruited out of our office before, becoming more involved with us as a center. Jason Curtis is also on the workforce committee for Micron that I'm chairing, and he's been very involved. I'm also looking at approaching him to become a new board member on the workforce development board. I'm hoping that he'll accept that and he'll be a good contributor to that board. And also Brian Hartwell as well. I plan to approach him because we are still looking for board members. I've lost a couple. I have one's term has exhausted and I'm not sure that he plans to return. So it's been a struggle for Cayuga County to have board membership. It's always been very Cortland County heavy. Hopefully we can continue to increase the membership, but that is something I'm working on currently. Other than that, working with my staff, the state has changed some of the requirements for our adult program. Previously, we have just enrolled and served adults that are essentially looking for a career change, making less than $25 an hour, which we consider reasonable in order for us to serve. Turns out there was an audit in the state, and it looks like in 2014 legislation had changed, that there is a priority of service that we are not really, not just us, but offices throughout the state have not been meeting. 50% would need to fall into a priority of service in terms of income, disability, certain barriers, and be recorded in such a way. So it isn't necessarily that we have not met the measure, but we probably are not recording it to make hard to make corrections and make sure that moving forward, we are documenting, in fact, the way we're serving, because we do typically serve people with barriers. So I'm not concerned that it's not getting done. It's more or less the tracking and data entry part of it. Last thing is we work really hard to increase our businesses in terms of work sites for our youth. We just recently secured and developed 2 new youth work sites, one in Moravia, Northwoods Nursing Home, and one in Auburn, Northbrook and Northwoods. So we have 2 new work sites for our youth. That's amazing. And looking at our youth funds, projecting out who we have enrolled and how many more we can enroll, we will exhaust our funds before the end of our budget year, which is good and bad. But we're spending our money and we're serving more youth than we ever have in my lifetime in employment and training, and that's been for the last 20 years. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the youth program and what's happening. And believe it or not, our summer youth applications will go out in March. So we will be heading out to all of the high schools in Cayuga County. We visited BOCES today. 2 of my staff did. So we're already recruiting for that. Funds will come through and the applications will be out to the public and to all of the school guidance offices next month for summer. So it's refreshing to hear that summer's right around the corner. That's all I have for tonight. Answer any questions.
Trish?
Thank you for your report, Kelly, and the work you're doing with the youth and the CDSS clientele as well. Do you have an update on how things are going with the Micron workforce development sessions? I saw just a brief bullet on the report. Could you add some context to that?
Yep. So we've met twice so far. So we have not met since my last report last month. So I don't have anything relatively new to share in terms of that. We meet again on Monday. So I'll have more, at the next committee meeting. Conversations are great. I think that, and Mike Miller, who's in the room, is also on the committee. There's been a lot of great discussion and a lot of great networking, not just exclusive to Micron, but in general, in terms of workforce issues, we've identified, as everyone knows, the childcare issue, the transportation issue, lack of training. So, I think that these discussions should have happened a long time ago. I think I mentioned that before, why we needed Micron to bring workforce development partners into one room. I don't know, but a lot has happened. A lot is, we're working really well together. I think you're going to see good things moving forward, looking at training and gaps and what we need to develop in this in Cayuga County for Micron, and also for businesses that will essentially lose workforce to Micron. We also have to think about that. And I said it, I think, in one of the first full workforce Micron meetings, is we don't want to lose sight of current employers, and we want to be, loyal to the employers that we have here, because that also is Micron will also affect them. So that's opening the eyes up to what can we do better now, and what can we do better to prepare ourselves for Micron. We're in the right direction. We do meet again on Monday. I lost my train of thought. So I met with the college. I attended one of their roundtables on the Advanced Manufacturing Institute last Friday, I believe it was. We've had similar discussions in terms of gaps and in terms of advanced manufacturing and training opportunities, and they have not been using their AMI, their Advanced Manufacturing Institute. I toured that when they did the ribbon cutting. I want to say it was in 2016, and truly nothing came of it in terms of training. And now they're talking about, micro-credentialing and what they can use the space for. And there's a lot of conversations going on that I haven't heard going on in years. So I would say that we are definitely moving in the right direction. Partnerships are there, strong partnerships with Cayuga Community College. Meeting with Dr. Durant, we've talked about some shared services and different things that we will be discussing. and partnerships. So I think that, I think in terms of training, workforce, as a whole, the system is starting to strengthen. And I think Micron might have kind of brought us all to that point.
Just as a quick follow-up on that, anything, building capacity for the trades, construction, electricians, all the trades people that will need to do these, undertake these major infrastructure projects and major construction projects. I know there's a major shortage before.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you look at the phases, you know, when you're talking about Micron itself, you know, that's down the road. We're looking at construction and trades and all of those things that we need that are going to happen first. Working with BOCES and working with the school district to look at the trades, and the trades are underutilized and they always have been. We've always been pushers of 4-year in community college and that, you know, going to get your bachelor's degree, and we forget about the trades. There's a huge shortage of plumbers and electricians, and think about your own selves with, you know, I've been trying to get an electrician at my own house for a long time and I can't. So we're working with BOCES and with Auburn and Large to see, you know, how can we promote the trades with our youth? Maybe we want to do a trades fair. Maybe we want to do some community outreach. Maybe we want to do some events, industry exposure. I talk about it all the time. It's not well known to kids that they can go into those fields. There's myths about that and about that type of work. Short-term trainings that lead to high wage potential is something we should be pushing with our youth and really focusing on our youth when it comes to that. So there are discussions on that, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else for Kelly? All right. Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Evening, everyone. I believe everyone has my report. I'll give you the highlights back here. In the month of January, we met with 18 existing businesses and assisted 13. Great start to kick off the year. It's a little bit above the monthly track that we're looking for the month over month. So I'm encouraged by that. As I said, the additional metrics and indicators are in your packet there. Some other items to note here. We CETA have held an additional meeting between our city and county stakeholders regarding wholesale water rates over this last month here. And a great deal of this is how it's impacting our business community. And right now, what we're trying to come up with are short-term solutions, but more probable fact of what this is going to turn out to be is a long-term fix, because so many different towns and businesses are part of what's going on here. So it's going to be something we're working on throughout 2023 here. And this is really important as we're considering any one large employer, milk plant as an example, the amount of water and sewer capacity they use alone, a change in their water rates can be a substantial threat to their operations, not just their existing ones, but their expansion efforts as well. And that's one example of one company there. So when we extrapolate that to our other existing businesses or potential businesses, it's something that's high on our priority of looking for a long-term solution on. Moving along, Maureen Reeser met with our Cayuga County Town Supervisors to discuss CETA services throughout the community. As mentioned within this last month, that's part of the outreach we're looking to do throughout this year, is to continue to meet at the community level and being within top of the county down to the bottom, making sure our folks or your constituents are aware that CETA services are free and confidential, not just for large businesses, but anyone looking to start a business. So I do request that all of you please continue to put out the word within your areas as well. Moving along, we have had a number of discussions with local business leaders on the feasibility and support for a business accelerator for Cayuga County. We've been holding on to this grant for a number of years. I've brought it up to this body within the last couple of months. We've had some really good discussions with plastic leaders in particular over their support and whether or not there's feasibility for a business incubator to be stood up here in Cayuga County. It's well known that the plastics industry is something that's growing in Cayuga County, but we're also pretty well known for advanced manufacturing as well, as Kelly brought up. There's a whole facility over at CCC right now with lots of donated equipment, something we believe at CETA and our partners as well as a great and right opportunity to help encourage new businesses to start up there. We have mentors here and we have a lot of support throughout the community. So I'm hoping to come back later to this body in the second quarter in particular to have a more fully fleshed out plan as we're continuing to do due diligence. As Kelly mentioned, we are continuing to meet with several of our partners and various committees on efforts related to Micron. I'll speak specifically here of sitting down with Steve Lynch and a number of other members that involve the city of Auburn as well, as we're evaluating potential sites for acquisition. Putting Micron aside, the Cayuga IDA needs new land. As mentioned previously, the majority of the land is gone from our current IDA park as part of the milk plant's expansion. There's a couple parcels left. So we're in the market. And what the IDA park needs is pretty sizable acreage, 50 to 100 acres to invest in. We're always interested in anything that already has existing infrastructure there, water and sewer, electricity, broadband. Other incentives that companies are looking for are access to major highways, rail if it's available. How close are you to an airport? So we're evaluating all of this. And as it relates to Micron, one of the great things we were able to take a look at sitting down with Steve's team is a heat map that was created dedicating what is the distance from the White Pines site and what available acreage is there between Auburn on north of potential areas for purchase for the IDA. So a lot of effort has been focused there, but the IDA itself is continuing to evaluate what's available throughout the county. Micron's just being one large thing there, but the southern end of the county is also being considered as well. I met with Megan Florowski. She's the director of WISE, which stands for the Women Igniting Spirit and Entrepreneurship. They're located out of Syracuse. They run very similarly to the Small Business Development Council. They really look to work with women entrepreneurs throughout the area here. And what I sat down with her about is she's looking to expand the reach within Cayuga County. What she had shared with me is they do work in Cayuga County. It's just not very well known. So they're really trying to increase those efforts here. They do have a ambassador of sorts here in Cayuga County, Melody Johnson, right down the street. For anyone who's interested, and obviously reach out to CETA. We're happy to make an introduction there. They have fantastic programming up there. It's really great. For anyone who's unable to travel throughout Cayuga County, a great deal of it's also virtual, low cost programs, and many of them are free as well. Lots of opportunity for networking there. Continuing with some CCIDA, that's Cayuga IDA activity. Lots going on in 2023 here. Aside from looking for new land for acquisition, we have the whole sewer project going on. This is the one with the EDA grant in excess of $1 million. As Kelly brought up here, working with government, state and federal level can be burdensome to say the least. So we're still going through a lot of back and forth with the EPA on the legal process of getting this project out to bid. I do thank this body and other members who aren't here tonight for helping to pass the resolution. It's one of many steps the EDA requires for an easement to help with the construction of that project. looking for a good update on that going into next month. With that aside, the pipeline of activity that exists for the IDA this year is close to $500 million potentially on the docket here. So lots of activity could be coming in. So stay tuned for that as well.
Thank you for the outreach to areas outside of the city. Do we know who attended that?
At the town council, town supervisors, I don't have it right offhand, but I can certainly get that.
It would be great because if my towns didn't participate, I'm gonna let them know about it.
Sure.
And also, I'm a proponent for, we manage what we measure. I'm wondering if I can make a request to you for when you report your metric snapshot, existing businesses assisted and entrepreneurs assisted. Can we add city versus not city?
Sure.
Thank you. That's the ammunition I'll need to have conversations.
Sure. Now, if you don't mind
With the
me
towns.
adding here, one of the things I've gathered more recently, and I'm still building some more data on what this is here, is I have requested from Sue's office a list of all DBAs that were filed in 2022. I was really interested in the towns they were filed in, but also taking a look at what's the population of each town throughout the area as well. So we're having a good sense of the number of companies or relative to the population throughout there. And part of that is for our own outreach efforts and where we're trying to focus of, are we missing areas over here? We know Auburn, just due to its size, has plenty more businesses than folks on north or down to my part in the south there. But we want to have more information of who are those folks? Are we reaching them? Are they better aware of what's going on? For this very reason of are those folks getting attention and being better informed of what's available, not just through our office, but everything else we're privy to know. So happy to help start providing that information.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
More questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Doug.
Hello and good evening, everybody. Before I forget, just to clarify a little bit about what our role could be in the district in case any of the sampling monitoring efforts that go on. I would see something in Cayuga Lake similar to what we do in Alaska Lake. Oftentimes, the district, we get a little different perspective sometimes with our implementation and some of the phases that we get involved with. So whether it's looking at data, where some of the different hot spots or sampling spots or whatever's going on with some of the information, you might be able to look at with a different lens and offer our opinions and advice, similar to what we do with Alaska Lake. So that's how I could see our role fitting in, not necessarily like a sampling, going to collect bottles in the field, but more of the just different perspective, I guess. Let's say that. But with regards to our report, we're right now we're still waiting for the state to drop a couple grant applications. So we're spending this time meeting with farmers. It's a great time of year to do that. They're readily available. They know the grants are typically coming out. So we're focusing our efforts, meeting with them, seeing what they have going on and how any of our projects can help them out. State just announced their EPF budget. It looks like there was some level funding that, if it stays that way from the proposed budget for things like the FLOPA account that I know planning gets involved with, or water quality and improvement program where we do our stream bank work, our Ag Now Point, that stayed the same. The climate resilient farming actually was scheduled for about a $2 million decrease in the budget. So, but it's still 14 million. So we have some projects lined up for that hopefully next year as well. So just waiting to see what that ends up being and how that finalizes. And just getting involved with a lot of discussions and different committees and different workshops, trainings this time of year. We did meet with, Jimmy might be interested in this one. We did meet with the Alpha boats. Boats are on schedule. We went through our existing boats to make sure they're on schedule, ready to go. We had a diesel engine guy Cummins from Syracuse come in, look at it, tweaked a couple things. I just saw the boat getting pulled in
into the shop today. So it's done, ready to go, ready to get pulled back out in the spring. So we should be ready to go on those two, just in case this other one isn't quite ready yet. And then finally, shameless plug, with spring being here, looking at next week's weather and today's weather, tree and shrub sale for the district, 52nd annual one is ongoing right now. So the important dates, deadlines May 2nd to order, pickup would be Friday the 12th. So get your orders in early because we tend to sell out of the popular stuff, the berries and like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, things like that, some apples. So who knows, maybe it's early spring, seems like it is now. So I'll take this February all day long. But any questions that you guys have, I'll be glad to answer.
Questions for Doug?
Let us know on a nice sunny day so we can take a boat ride, will you?
Yeah, definitely. I have a ribbon cutting. Is that, do I have one of those out there on the lake?
Sure.
We do have a new operator this year, so he's gonna have a little bit of free time to practice and train a little bit. He's been with the program for a while, but he hasn't been manning the controls, so bear with him if you can. If you hear complaints, take it easy on him. He's a good guy, great operator.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
And I said your name early on, but I didn't.
Guess I'm wrapping it up today. Just a few things I want to highlight and have a couple additions from my written report. First of all, want to thank Doug and his team for working with us on a winter crop meeting that we had out at the Holiday Inn on January 30th. The theme of that was soil health. We had 50 farmers and agribusiness professionals that work with the farmers in the county there, learning about no-till cropping, reducing the impacts of soil compaction, some plant disease management, and then some kind of updated research on biochar, which is still very much in the research phase. There's some promising things there around possibly being part of carbon sequestration, but we're probably a ways from that being commercially implemented. And I think that's important to note because I've heard in some conversations in terms of these farmers coming that some of the farmers in our county, just do what their dads or their granddads did. I think this is evidence that our farmers are interested in adapting practices, implementing new technologies. With our nutrition program, a lot of that, our success depends on partnerships. So one of the things that our nutrition educator is doing right now is working with the community action program with their Head Start program and going and offering some nutrition education to the moms of the children that are enrolled in the early Head Start program, which is the 3 to 4 year olds. So, helping kids get off to a healthy start. The 2022 ag census, the initial collection phase of that wrapped up last week. They now move into kind of like they do with the regular census where they'll be following up with farmers with phone calls, visiting the farms to get information. And then it takes sometime in late 2024 would be when we'll have some new information on the county statistics. So it takes them a while. They got to do some estimations and they get the state data out before they get the county level data out. Last thing for today, this is kind of hot off the presses. We just sent it out today. I have some flyers for youth tractor safety course that'll be coming up this spring. I'll leave those on the table. This is one way that we sort of get involved in workforce development at an early age. For kids who aren't relatives of farmers, they actually need to take this to be able to operate a farm and operate a tractor if they're working on the farm during the summer or on the weekends. And just along the lines of workforce development, you'll probably be hearing that more from me. We're finding out that some of the challenges that have been longstanding on the production side of agriculture in terms of finding employees are now becoming apparent in the upstream and downstream related businesses. So things like our machinery dealerships are having trouble finding technicians to repair and service the tractors. We're having challenges on the processing side, finding enough people to potentially work in an expanded CMI facility. So you're going to be seeing more of that. We are working, or I've been having some discussions with the community college on ways we can maybe come up with some, short courses or certificate programs in some of those areas. That's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Dan.
Any questions for Dan? Good.
Thank you, Dan, for your report. I was wondering if you had any updates on the county fair. I know it's quite a ways off, but I just was wondering what that looked like.
Okay, so there remains with the county fair a significant stumbling block in ag and markets law related to who can receive premium reimbursement from the state and monies for infrastructure. I thought late at the end of last year that we might be able to get some money. It now seems like maybe we can't. The state's looking at it again. We are going to move forward with a youth fair this summer. I'm going to be getting a committee together here in the next couple of weeks to look at that, but we may be at the point for long-term security that we have to look at a change in the state law. Because it very specifically identifies who's eligible, and if you're not a county agricultural society, you then have to be added into that state law to receive funding. So
Is there some information you could send? I would
yeah,
love to look into that a little more.
Yep.
We have very active representatives. Assemblyman Melendez is a farmer himself.
Yep.
Love to see what we can do there.
Yep. I can get that out to you and look at that. I know my colleagues in Orange County had to go through that 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a process.
Right.
If there's something that I can do to help that process along too, please let me know.
Okay, thanks, Lee.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. There's no tourism updates. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Second,
Lucille.
all in favor?
Preaching the track.
Carry.